Hello, and welcome to the Jeffrey podcast. This is another TierMaker episode, this time for the band dEUS. My name's Gordon, I'm here with my brother John.
Hello.
And we're going to run through the studio albums of dEUS. We originally did the episode back in 2020 sometime, and we're going to use the updated rankings we used in a follow-up episode, reviewing the album How to Replace It. So it's our most recent ranking, and we're going to fit that onto our TierMaker list. So the 5 categories of 5 levels are banger, splendid, decent, nout special, and clanger. The links to the original podcast episodes will be down in the bottom somewhere.
In the description.
Description, thank you, good word.
And you should say, by the way, the reason you can't see us, which is an odd feature, considering it's YouTube, is because this is normally a podcast.
So we'll go through chronologically. So we'll start with the first album, Worst Case Scenario. So I find this a difficult one, exactly where to put this one. So do you know where you want to put it?
Yes, I do, but I think I like this album a lot more than you do, because it's definitely one of my favourites. I think it's an absolute cracker. So I would be putting it right at the top. But I know when we did the original episode of this, you said people had problems with it, found it a little difficult, a bit maybe jazzy or a little bit, I don't know, perhaps incoherent in places, which I don't think it is. But
yeah, I think so. It is certainly a little bit inconsistent. It has grown on me more. I've listened to it a bit more. But
I don't think it's inconsistent. I don't know where that comes from. I mean, it's eclectic.
That came from me just now.
Well, okay, but I don't know what it comes from on the album. I think it probably did just come from you rather than the album. Because the album is eclectic. It's different styles, but I don't know about inconsistent.
Yeah, okay, fair enough. As I said, it is growing on me. And we ranked it 4th, didn't we?
Yeah, which I don't agree with.
Well, I think it's difficult because they've got quite a few excellent albums.
True. So, I mean, it's whether or not we stick with banger, which is where I would put it, or whether we'd probably come down a little bit and put it in splendid, which is probably where you'd put it. I would guess.
I think I would argue for putting it in splendid.
Okay, let's put it in splendid then, even though I disagree, but this is a joint ranking, so I'm happy with it being top end of splendid. If some people find it a little inconsistent or find... You said people had problems with it, is what you'd said previously. So, I don't know what's wrong with people, but there you go.
Yeah, of course it is. It is the first album, and it's when everyone was getting very excited about dEUS as the next big thing. So obviously it's not everybody who felt that way.
What do you mean? Not everybody thought dEUS were the next big thing?
No, a lot of people did. So they obviously think that the first album was excellent as well.
Well, I think it was one of the first times we'd ever heard music that was of that type packaged in that way. I'm sure people that knew a lot more about people like Frank Zappa and Captain Beefheart and Tom Waits and people like that had heard it more than we had. But I know we had never heard anything quite like this, packaged in what was quite a sort of a polished and rock way, but that was using samples and had quite a lot of jazzy sensibilities, but drew on all of those kind of artists. I'd never heard anything like it, and therefore I assume others were in a similar boat.
Yeah, I'm sure they are, and then that does help. I think when something seems completely original, it
did to me. I mean, I thought this and the follow-up album, which is the first 2 I got, I just thought not only have I never heard anything like this, but this is exactly bang on my musical taste. I didn't even realise it. I couldn't have articulated it in any way. It was only when I heard the albums, I just thought, oh my God, this is it.
Yeah, that's a nice feeling, isn't it? When you find something that's original and you just love it so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I'd probably put it right at the top in banger, but never mind.
Okay, so let's go to the second album, In a Bar Under the Sea.
So Rudy Gervais left, we should say, the original guitarist. He didn't last long. So he's replaced by Craig Ward.
That's right. So this is a banger, isn't it?
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I think just a wonderful album. It's got one song that I'm much less keen on, which is the Memories of a Festival. I don't really like that. But apart from that, I just think this is an absolute cracker of an album. I think it's got all the good stuff that was on Worst Case Scenario, but it's just a little bit more consistent, a little bit more, maybe just slightly more accessible.
I think so. It is definitely still as eclectic, isn't it? But I do think it does feel a little bit more polished and more accessible to me.
Yeah. I couldn't believe it when I got this album. Like I said, it was, you just think, God, I'm so lucky. Just you're expecting the follow-up to be like rubbish or something, a one-hit wonder, but no. So, oh my God, this is just absolute brilliant stuff.
Yeah. So, do you want to do the lineup changes for the third album? So the third album
Sure.
is Ideal Crash.
Yeah, well, Steph Camel-Carlin's bass player, vocalist. And he was more than that. He was very much a key part of the dynamic of the band. Him and Tom were, really the sort of core of the band. So him leaving really was quite a big change. So Craig Ward had replaced Rudy Trevay on guitar, but he also replaced Steph Camel-Carlin's in that kind of other main counterweight to Tom.
The creative role.
Yeah, and Donny Mommons came in to actually play bass, who also did some writing and composition. Danny Cool Rockets Mommons, I believe he became known.
Yes, I knew you would get that in.
I had to, yeah. And he is quite cool, I have to say. He's a pretty cool dude.
So this has to be a banger because we rated this top.
Yeah, well, I mean, it is. I probably not entirely sure I'd put it top, but I mean, it's splitting hairs because it's just an absolute corker of an album. It goes a lot more guitar-y and a bit rockier, but it's still got that dEUS kind of twang about it. So I think it's really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, it's much less eclectic, and it feels like a more sort of mainstream rock album, but they certainly kept the quality.
Yeah, and there is still an element of that. I don't know, weirdness I don't know if that's quite the right word, but there is still something that's quite characteristically dEUS about it. A bit less so. I mean, it is a definite step change, but it still feels, within the orbit of the original band. Although they are starting to sound quite different, but they've lost two of their main people with Rudy and Steph. So inevitably they're going to sound different.
Yeah. So after that tour, the band went on a hiatus. And they then came back to record Pocket Revolution, the fourth album. And there are more lineup changes here. Yeah,
the drummer Jules de Bourgaert didn't make it back. We don't know why. I've never actually seen an explanation for this, but there are rumours around that he was unreliable. But we don't know that. But he's replaced by Stéphane Meseguer from Soulwax. And during the recording of the album, Craig Ward left. And Danny Mommons left to do Vive la Fête with Els Panay, his partner. So they were replaced by Mauro Pulowski and Alain Gavet. Alan, who played with Tom in Magnus, I think, because in the Magnus final concert, which you can see on YouTube, I'm pretty sure it's Alain Gavet on guitar, but he comes into dEUS to play bass. And Mauro Pulowski, who's a bit of a big wig around the old Belgian indie scene, having been in Evil Superstars and a few other bands.
So the ranking here, we rank this third, which I know isn't really...
It's not where I'd put it.
Where you'd put it. So I think that puts it clearly in splendid. And while I'm also not 100% sure about the ranking, I do think it's definitely splendid. It's more comparable to the Ideal Crash in terms of style.
Yes, definitely. It's definitely Ideal Crash style.
It doesn't quite work as well. I think it does feel more like a collection of songs rather than an album, but they are very good songs.
I think I'd largely agree with that. I do think the songs are a bit patchier and a little bit more mainstream, a bit less interesting. So I think there are fewer standout tracks on this. I mean, Nothing Really Ends at the end, which doesn't really belong on the album, but that is obviously a great song, but it does feel tagged on. But I just don't feel it's got the same high points. So yes, it's a good album, definitely. I'd probably put it down into decent. I'd definitely put it below Worst Case Scenario.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it's sort of like wavering in between. I could almost have all these four as bangers.
Yeah, well, I could definitely have Worst Case Scenario as a banger, but for me, Pocket Revolution isn't a banger. It's a perfectly decent album. It's enjoyable, but it doesn't get up to the ankles of the others, really. It just feels a lot, I don't know, just less interesting, I think.
So the next album that's Vantage Point. So we rank this bottom, 8th.
Yeah, and I think I'm happy with that being 8th, but that's not to say it's not a good album. It's actually an album that I enjoyed more and more, the more I've listened to it. I don't think they've ever done a bad album, but this is the one I think I least enjoyed. It just felt the most poppy, the most mainstream, the least interesting. Start to have songs that I actually don't like quite as much. So it does feel like this is a very different phase dEUS than the first 4 albums. It's very much a Tom Barman band, and which is not a bad thing. Tom Barman's brilliant. But I didn't warm to this as much.
Yeah, I would pretty much agree with that. It's definitely not as strong, but like you say, it is good. But I think compared to certainly the 4 albums before it, it definitely does feel like a step in the wrong direction.
Are you happy with where I've put it as decent, by the way? I just put it there without asking.
It's sort of somewhere in between decent and now special. I mean, as dEUS goes, it's now special, but by sort of normal standards, it still is, I think, just into good.
Yeah, I think I'd be slightly more positive about it than that. I think that also, I mean, if you look at the cover, it's completely different. And I think that does signal the fact that this is pretty much a different band by this point. And the styling of them is kind of quite representative of that step change. But yeah, I think it creeps into decent. I mean, I do think it's an enjoyable album.
Yeah, I mean, and there are sort of definitely some sort of very good songs on here, like sort of Slow and The Architect, although The Architect took me a while to like.
Yeah, I agree.
Smokers Reflect as well.
I mean, again, it's back to just what you said before. It feels more like a collection of songs, but still, yeah, I think it's a decent album. Not what I would put in anybody's dEUS starter pack, but you know.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So the next one is Keep You Close.
Yeah.
Which is definitely better, I think. It does feel sort of a lot more consistent.
I completely agree. Yeah.
And you can listen, quite happily listen to the whole thing. So this is, decent at worst here, isn't it?
Yeah, I was thinking about this. I mean, this is an album that's grown on me a lot as well. And I do think there's some really good songs on here. And there's run of songs, like great stuff like Dark Sets In and Constant Now. I think this is a pretty strong album, actually. I think it's this second phase dEUS or third phase dEUS, whatever it is, that is really kicking ass at this point. I think they're sounding really good. The songs are interesting again. They're enjoyable. They're fun. They're catchy. No, they haven't quite got the magic of those first couple of albums, but, they've got something else at this point, I think, a more mature sound.
Yeah, definitely. So,
are we going Splendid? I think we can just about justify Splendid.
Okay, yeah.
On this, I think. Yeah, I think we can. Yeah, I'm having it. Splendid. So we go to the following C.
So yeah, that which was released just after. I think they were kind of recorded back to back pretty much. And it came out something like 6 months later, I think.
Yeah, it was very close in time, wasn't it?
Yeah. So this is a lot, I would say, is quite inconsistent. There's some great tracks on it, but there's also some quite weak ones.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's got some really good stuff on it that I do really enjoy, and actually, in some ways, beats Keep You Close. But it does have songs on it which I don't think are that great, and it does feel a bit up and down. So, on balance, I think it goes below Keep You Close. I know originally we ranked it above, and then we changed our minds. Yeah. So on balance, yeah, I think it goes below, but I still definitely think it's decent. Not sure I'd go Splendid.
No, I don't think it's consistent enough to be Splendid. That's it's a 4-star album. Splendid, isn't it? I don't think it is.
Yeah, I'm going to try and put it here if this thing moves. There we go. Yeah, I think that to me feels right. Yeah.
Yes, I'm happy
it belongs
with that
there. It's a top of decent. Great tracks on it. Catch a Man. I do quite like a few of the tracks at the end. Think about Waves and the Google algorithm thing. So there's definitely songs on there that I really like. But yeah. But there's a massive gap then, isn't there?
Yes. So is it 12 years or something with it? Must be 11 years, mustn't it?
I thought it was 10 because it's 2012 to, was it 22 or 23 when this came out? So 10 or 11 years when How to Replace It comes out.
2023 it came out. It was early in 2023, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah, it was, wasn't it? So that's 11 years. So the lineup change is that now.
Because Mauro left the band and Bruno de Groot joined the band. But then I think while they were recording the album, wasn't it? He had a stroke and had to leave the band to look after his health. And Mauro came back.
Yeah, he came back to help them finish it. Yeah.
Yeah, to sort of cover live dates and help them record the album, I think. And then he eventually joined permanently. But neither are credited on the album sleeve as band members, which I thought was a little strange, but
yeah, it struck me as odd that they didn't let Bruno be a full member of it. Poor fella.
Yeah, so I mean, ranking is already done for us because we ranked it in fifth in between Worst Case Scenario and Keep You Close. So that goes in for Splendid, and I think that's fair enough. It's a very good album. very quite different in a lot less guitar, possibly due to the sort of guitarist issues, maybe. But I think with the exception of a couple of tracks, I do like the whole album.
Yeah, I agree. I think it does sound quite a bit different. It does. I mean, it's obviously been a decade since they were busy in that time. They were touring. They did the Selected Songs tour. You know, they did other live date commitments, and they all had other bands and stuff going on. But it's a decade, isn't it? So it's going to sound different. Your taste changed. But to me, yeah, it does sound quite a lot different. But there's some really good stuff on here. I might now possibly move it below Keep You Close. I don't know if I was looking at it. When we ranked it, it was new and we're quite excited. I don't think it's grown from that point for me. I think that was its high point. So if anything, it's slightly gone down in my estimation. So I might rank it lower than Keep You Close now. I'm not sure. It still annoys me a little bit in Love Breaks Down. The way Love Breaks Down ends, it just concludes too cutely. And I just find that just a little irritating. And every song has its kind of set piece intro, which again, I just think breaks up the album a bit. It just fails to flow a little bit. So there are little tweaks that I would love to be able to do, because I think there's some really, really good songs on here and brilliant ideas. Things like Dream is a Giver, I think, is a cracking song, but the version of it is a tiny bit bland. So I'd love to have been there and said, you know, hey fellas, why don't you try this or try that? Because I think it's only a little bit short of being a much, much better album, in my opinion.
Yeah, fair enough. I do think I think it's definitely not a banger for some of those reasons you've said. I think there is a certain sort of weakness to it. It does feel like it could be stronger.
I think that should be my job, where I get to just go around and tell people how to do stuff better. I think I'd be very good at that.
Yeah, can't see any problems with that.
No, I think I'd be most welcome.
Yeah, going in criticising. I'm sure they'd love it. Send them your CV, or maybe don't. Just a letter.
Yeah, I'd say that's nothing that'll help. So that's our tier ranking of dEUS at the moment. Anyway, let's hope they're going to record a new album soon, because they are working together quite a lot at the moment. Still touring, still knocking about. So hopefully there'll be new stuff on the way. The lineup seems pretty settled, unless Mauro decides to leave again.
So just need to say that if you want to read articles and have links to the podcast, check out jeffreymusic.rocks. And we're also on Twitter and Instagram as @jeffreymusic.rocks.
People do say like and subscribe, don't they, on YouTube? So we should say like and subscribe, that kind of thing. And click the bell and whatever else that you're supposed to do on YouTube.
So yes, so please like and subscribe and all those things that everyone else asks you to do that you meant to do. Thank you.